Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a cold case that literally baffled investigators for a quarter of a century. It's a heartbreaking story for sure, but it's also this incredible testament to how international police cooperation and modern crowdsourcing can bring answers to some of the absolute darkest mysteries out there. Today we're looking at the case of the girl in the River Main.
Now, I want you to just ask yourself a question for a second. How exactly could a 16-year-old girl be found right in the middle of a major European city and then remain completely unidentified for 2.5 decades? I mean, in an era of global databases, missing persons reports, and hyper-advanced forensics, how does someone just fall through the cracks of humanity for 25 years?
Chapter 1. The Discovery in Frankfurt.
Okay, so let's go back to July 31st, 2001. It's around 2:50 in the afternoon. Passers-by in Frankfurt's Needs district noticed something highly suspicious floating in the water. Specifically, this was in the River Main, right between the Griesheim Barrage and the Wörthspitze. When authorities got there and actually retrieved the object, they quickly realized it was a tightly bound bundle containing human remains.
From day one, investigators meticulously analyzed this crime scene. The victim had been wrapped up in a brown leopard print bedspread, which is actually a type of blanket commonly used in South Asia. And to conceal the crime, the bundle was tied and weighed down with a heavy parasol stand. Forensic examiners quickly worked out the timeline here. She'd been in the water for about 12 to 14 hours, but was likely deceased for approximately 3 days before whoever did this ever dumped her in the river.
And the physical condition of the victim, it was just truly heartbreaking. She weighed a mere 38.5 kilograms. To put that into perspective, that is just 85 pounds. She was about 1.57 meters, or 5 foot 2 inches tall. And while the experts estimated her true age to be between 15 and 16 years old, she was so severely malnourished and her physical development was so delayed that she honestly looked closer to 13.
So the crucial takeaway here is that her condition told a story of a horrific, tragic life. Respectfully, we need to look at the clinical evidence. The autopsy revealed severe, prolonged maltreatment. We're talking fractures to both upper arms that had actually healed in the completely wrong position, simply because they were never treated by a doctor. She had a deformed, cauliflower-like left ear caused by blunt force trauma, numerous burn scars consistent with cigarette burns, and long scars all across her legs, torso, and forehead. Ultimately, her cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma, which resulted in 2 fractured ribs that fatally injured her lungs and spleen.
Chapter 2. Decades as a Jane Doe.
Right, so let's look at the scientific approach they had to take. Investigators couldn't just rely on missing persons reports because, shockingly, nobody had reported her missing, not a single person. So forensic scientists used isotope analysis. If you're not familiar, this essentially creates a geographic roadmap of where a person lived based on the minerals deposited in their bones and teeth. Combined with a scarf-like object found on her, this analysis pointed her origins to the Pakistan, Afghanistan, or northern India border area. So the working theory became that she had immigrated to the Frankfurt Rhine-Main area early in life. There was even speculation that she might have been a domestic servant, or maybe tied to diplomatic circles, which would kind of explain the total lack of local records. But there is a truly chilling contrast here. On one side, you have this massive abundance of police effort, extensive forensic profiles, multiple national television appeals on shows like Germany's Aktensites in XY, and investigators who cared so deeply they actually personally funded her burial at the Heiligenstock Cemetery. But on the other side, absolute silence. 0 missing persons matches. For 25 long years, not a single tip ever led to her identity.
Chapter 3. The Identify Me campaign.
So let's see how this finally evolved into a modern investigative breakthrough. Interpol originally launched the Identify Me campaign back in 2023, coordinating with 6 European countries to identify women found dead over recent decades. And in October 2024, they added the girl in the River Main to this campaign. The strategy was super clear. Review the cold case, issue these massive public alerts utilizing digital facial reconstructions, and then crowdsource tips from the global public to generate fresh leads.
Now, a really key tool in this campaign is what's called a black notice. A black notice is an international request issued by Interpol to gather information on unidentified human remains. But what's totally unprecedented here is that the Identify Me campaign marked the very first time Interpol ever publicly shared extracts from these highly classified alerts with the general public. They put it all out there: biometric data, physical descriptions, and images of the victim's personal objects.
And the effectiveness of this strategy? It's best summarized by Interpol Secretary General Valdeci Urquiza, who said, "The efforts of the German authorities, supported by information from the public, have helped advance a case that had remained open for a quarter of a century." That combination of public engagement with sustained, tireless investigative work was the ultimate key, because the campaign worked. Tips finally started coming in.
Chapter 4. A name restored and an arrest.
After nearly 25 years as a Jane Doe, the girl in the River Main finally had her name restored. Her name was Diana S. She was no longer just a cold case file or a tragic bundle found in the water. She was Diana, a 16-year-old girl whose identity was finally reclaimed from the silence. And identifying her immediately unlocked the doors that had been slammed shut for decades. Because knowing who she was meant knowing who she lived with. On May 12, 2026, acting swiftly on the initiative of the Public Prosecutor's Office in Frankfurt am Main, the Hessian State Criminal Police Office made a massive arrest in the nearby city of Offenbach.
So, here is the crucial point: who they arrested. The suspect is a 67-year-old German national born in Pakistan. And in just a profoundly disturbing revelation, the perpetrator allegedly behind her decades of abuse and her brutal murder was her own father. It finally answers that agonizing question of why she was never reported missing. The person responsible for her care was allegedly the very one responsible for her death.
Looking at the complete timeline really gives us a stark view of this whole pursuit of justice. Between July 28 and 31, 2001, prosecutors allege Diana was killed in her family apartment in Offenbach by a large number of brutal beatings. On July 31st, her wrapped body was discovered in the River Main. And then there's this massive 25-year jump of total silence until May 12, 2026, when her father was finally arrested.
Chapter 5. Justice Delayed. So, where do things stand now? Well, as of right now, the 67-year-old suspect is currently in pretrial detention on suspicion of murder. The authorities are, of course, continuing their investigation into the exact circumstances of Diana's life and death. So while the Jane Doe cold case is officially closed, the murder trial and the pursuit of full legal accountability are just getting underway in the German courts.
But before we wrap up, I really want to draw your attention to this number, 41. Diana's identification was the 6th successful case linked to Interpol's Identify Me campaign. That means there are still 41 other unresolved cases. 41 other unidentified women remaining in this database, just waiting for someone to recognize a detail, a piece of clothing, or a facial reconstruction.
Which leaves us with this final thought. Diana was given her name back because someone, somewhere, finally spoke up after seeing a public alert. With her case solved after 25 impossible years, who else is waiting in the Interpol database for the public to finally speak up? It really challenges all of us to realize the incredible power of our own awareness. Sometimes the key to unlocking a quarter century of silence is literally just one person paying attention.